Okay, and welcome to this shield tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about just making a very simple shield, just using a couple of different examples. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. These techniques can be applied to various types of weapons and armor and shields and different items used in the game Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, which this mod is going to be for. We're going to be going through various stages of the workflow that I personally use for creating mods. It will be starting off in Blender and then going through to ZBrush to add some finer details, going back into Blender to do our UV unwrapping and Vertex Painting, and then we'll go to Substance Painter to do our texturing and high poly to low poly baking. Come back to Blender just to add our physics meshes, and then we'll go into the editor and finally import the shield into the game, and so we can see it in action. So if that's what you're looking for, then stay tuned. Okay, we're just going to add a circle mesh here. Just going to left click that one, press R and X to rotate on the X axis, and then 90 on a numpad just to rotate by 90 degrees. Okay, tab into edit mode, and then we're just going to select all the vertices by A, then press E to extrude the vertices, and then immediately press S to scale them in. Okay, going to scale it in just a bit. Okay, go again, E and then S, and then one more time, E and then S. Okay, just until we've got it at about the same size that we want the boss to be. Okay, and then just going to go up to face, okay, and then press grid fill. And you're just going to change the offset here just until it lines up nicely. Okay, nice and even. I'm just going to hold Alt and left click here, okay, just to select just the all of the vertices on the outside loop. Okay, press E one more time, press S, and extrude that out a little bit more. Okay, then we're just going to make sure that the proportional editing mode is turned on up the top here. Okay, and then that is in sphere mode. Really important that we're using sphere mode in proportional editing. Okay, then we're just going to select the center vertex here. Okay, just going to press G to move this one. Okay, and then we're going to move it just along the Y axis. We're going to press Y. Okay, and then you can use your mouse wheel, okay, just to scroll up and down, just to increase or decrease the size that we're editing here. Okay, and we're just going to move that just along the Y-axis until we've got our boss shape. Okay, now we're just going to keep that center vertex selected still. Okay, and we're going to go back into proportional editing. Okay, Y-axis, and we're just going to scroll out our mouse wheel nice and wide. Okay, and we're just going to just taper out the greater size of the shield there. Okay. All right. Now we're just going to go to object. Okay, in object mode, going to go apply and then all transforms. Okay, I've actually got this one set to my quick favorites just because I use it a lot. So I just add that into my quick favorites here. Okay, now all transforms are applied. We can just go to our modifiers. Okay, we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier, okay, which just subdivides our geometry. Okay, add a couple of levels to that one. It's going to turn off edit mode here. Okay, so that once we're in edit mode, it goes back to its default stage. Okay, we're just going to add a couple of edge loops in here just to increase our geometry and give it some nice sharp edges once we're back in our object mode. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I might add just a little bit more geometry there. Just make it nice and sharp. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now we can just apply our subdivision modifier here. Okay, all transforms. We're just going to add a solidify modifier now just to add some thickness to our geometry so that once we go into ZBrush, it's a little bit easier to work with. We don't get that Swiss cheese effect that happens sometimes. Okay, I'm just going to turn on even thickness, and I think about 0.02 is a pretty good thickness for what we want here. Okay, that one's cool. We can just shade that smooth. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with the overall shape of this one. Okay, so once we've got all of our modifiers all applied here. Okay, we're just going to apply all transforms one more time. Okay, and then this one's ready to go. So we can export this as an FBX. Okay, now I've just set up in here in my desktop just some Shield tutorial folders. Okay, just to keep things simple. Okay, it doesn't really matter what we call this one right now, so we're just going to go with Shield tutorial. Okay, just make sure that you've got on selected objects and mesh. Export that as an FBX, and then we're going to take this one into ZBrush. So I'll see you there. Alrighty, so now that we're here in ZBrush, we're just going to go ahead and import the Shield tutorial FBX that we created in Blender. Just going to take a couple of seconds just to load in. Got that one, and then we're just going to go ahead and drag that out with our left mouse button. Go to edit. Okay, and now we can have play around with this one. So we're just going to make that a Polymesh 3D. Okay, and then I'm just going to hit Control D just a couple of times just to subdivide it again. All right, give that a nice amount of geometry. Okay, you can see it's some very dense geometry there now. Okay, so now that we've got that, I'm not going to go ahead and add too much detail here just to take up time. That will be in the more detailed and in-depth tutorial series that will be available on ArtStation later on. Okay, but for now, I'm just going to, as an example, just go ahead and show you guys just how to add some geometry that we would then bake onto our high poly mesh. Okay, so just going to add a bit of detail here. Okay, you can, you can really write just whatever you want here. I mean, you know, this is just as an example, as I said. But once we've got a bit of detail, okay, you can add anything else around here, a bit of extra stuff. All right, but what I like to do is actually just get some alphas, okay, or just some different brushes. All right, but if we go over to, if you hold Control, you can go into your mask, okay, add on our drag rectangle here. Okay, we can just add some different alphas here. Okay, so we can put this one on. All right, and I like to, while I'm holding Control, take down the focal shift, up the size a little bit. All right, and we can just put that on there. All right. Now, we'll just increase our draw size, press B, I, N, go to our inflate brush. Turn down the intensity, and then we can just inflate this a little bit. Got a cool little design going on there. Awesome. All right, just to give you guys a bit of an idea of what this will look like once we've added some detail on there. Okay. You can, of course, add different trim decorations or anything around the edges or whatever kind of decoration you want to put on here. All right, now once we've done this, I'm just going to show you guys how I set up my folder structures and naming conventions inside of ZBrush just to make the workflow a little bit more straightforward, a little bit simpler. Okay, so I'm going to create a folder here. I'm going to call that HP for high poly. All right, scroll up a little bit here. And this one I'm just going to rename to all lower caps, high poly field, or sorry, poly field high. Okay, so that's our high poly version. All right, going to duplicate that one. All right, and then we're going to rename this one to field low. All right, add this one into a folder of LP for low poly. All right, now that's not super important right now because we only have our two sort of base meshes here. All right, but once you start combining a lot of meshes together for one larger project, okay, it's always much simpler to keep it in folders, just keep it nice and organized, all right, and help you see things a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this one. That's it's very, very basic, but it's just for the example. So what I'm going to do, obviously, we're going to solo mode here. We can see that this is about 500,000 polys, which is not what we want. Okay, so I'm actually just going to go down to my geometry tab, and go to Z Remesher. first of all, I'm going to go detect edges and same, just to give it a bit of a remesh. Okay, go ahead with that one. That'll just take a few seconds depending on your system. Once that one is remeshed on our low poly, already pretty happy with that, the way that's going. So turn off the high poly as well, just to make things a bit easier, although we're in solo mode anyway. All right, so you can see that's starting to lower the geometry there again already. Going to put on half, go ZBrush one more time. Each time that we go through this ZBrush, it'll go a little bit faster because it has a bit less work to do. It's nice. The cool thing about this one is it's very simple geometry. Okay, so just going with ZBrush is nothing simple and it's not too destructive. So we're going to be able to just do this and then bake on our high poly detail on top, and it should still come out nicely. The fact that it changes, some of the details around the edges here makes it a little bit rough. Actually, sort of plays towards our favor on this one, as we're going to try and make it look like it's a little bit beaten up. It's seen some battle. It's a shield in a war, so it's taken a little bit of damage. So it's not going to be perfect. So imperfection is digital perfection or something. So we don't want it to be too nice and even. All right, so we're just going to keep going down with that one until it's nice and low poly. All right, that's probably a little bit too much. Okay, I think I'm going to be okay with just going for about 3,500 polys there. All right, and it's not super even, but this is totally fine for what we need it for. All right, so once we've got it down to about 3,500 polys there, I'm just going to go ahead and export this low poly shield. We're going to go up to Z plugin, FBX import export plugin here, and these settings look pretty good. So just going to go with the selected one and export that into our tutorial shield folder on desktop. And so that one's exported, so good. This one we're just going to export our high poly into the same place. Build high. So that's where these naming conventions starts to come into play. Okay, so ZBrush is great at exporting the meshes with the exact same file name as what you've called it in your layer stack here of your subtools. Okay, so we've got those two exported now, which is great. We can jump out of ZBrush. Could have saved that one if you want to. All right, but we're just going to go back into Blender now for our UV unwrapping and Vertex Painting. Right, so now that we've got this one in here, okay, I'm just going to import shield that I've grabbed using the T-Pack tool. So this is one of the vanilla shields from the Bannerlord base game. Okay, I'm just using this one as an example just to show you how we're going to go about aligning these ones, okay, and also just getting us straps for the back of the shield. Okay, I want some nice low poly straps. They don't have to be too detailed. All right, so we're just going to scale these ones down. We just need to line it up with the vanilla shield. Right, so this is sort of the closest one I was able to find to what we need it to be. So we're just going to build this one down. About there. Okay, and then just isolate this one just by pressing the /. Okay, go into tab mode and tab into edit mode, sorry. We're going to press L over these parts that we don't really want. Okay, so just going to grab those, right, and just this little boss around the front there as well. Okay, and just going to get rid of those parts. Okay, that'll just leave us with this these straps here. That's all we really need. Okay, so we can have those nice and lined up there. So it's not exactly where we would want that to be. Okay, you can just sort of move that around a bit. Okay, and scale it up. It's not perfect, but just as an example, you can make your own straps if you'd like to, or you can just fiddle around with it a bit until it sort of works. Cool. Alrighty, so once we've got that all sorted, okay, give that a save. Okay, and then we just want to make sure that, yeah, we've got some UVs going on here. Okay, and we're going to then just isolate our low poly shield. Okay, and we're just going to put some UV seams on this one. Okay, I'm just going to hold Alt in my vertice mode here, right, and hold Alt and left click on one of these rings on our loops, and just going to mark seam. Mark a seam around our boss here as well. Alright, so that one's looking pretty cool. Alrighty, then we're just going to select all of those points, press U and unwrap, which gives us these parts here. Now it is a little bit sort of some dense topology going on there. Fine, we can sort of break it up a little bit. Unwrap that one again. Alright, cool, that one's looking pretty good. Now, what I want to do is I'm just going to take just this inside part. And we're just going to do our vertex painting. It's actually a little bit easier in face mode. So I've pressed C to grab this selector, which I'm just going to use to separate this part out. Right, now once we've got that one separated, we can go into modeling, tab out of the edit mode there, isolate this piece. Okay, and then we're just going to go up to object mode and vertex paint. This is going to allow us to apply different materials to different areas inside of Substance Painter, all on the same texture map and on the same UV map. Okay, so keep things nice and tidy. All right, so just going to double tap A here, or single tap A, and just choose a color. All right, so yeah, I can go with orange. All right, and press Shift K. Yeah, it's not showing up in our screencast here for some reason. But yeah, so Shift K, and then if you double tap, you can go back to your wireframe mode here. Okay, Shift K will fill in with the entire color that you've chosen there. All right, we can go back to just our normal shield mesh, go back to modeling, tab out of edit mode, and isolate this part. Okay, go back to texture paint, choose a different color. All right, so green. Tap A to select all, and Shift K to paint all of those pieces. All right, now we can actually just join these two pieces back together. All right, and we'll grab our strap here as well. Okay, we want that to have its own vertex painting and its own material. All right, so select all. All right, and just going to actually, I'll make that a different color. Let's say purple, just for fun. Okay, and then we can actually duplicate that one. Okay, we want to have one of these pieces of straps, okay, and our shield selected, okay. Control J, we'll join those ones together. Going to isolate that. And then, so UV maps are just a little bit of a mess now because these straps actually already have their own UVs. Okay, so that we don't have to mess up the nice UVs that they have, we're just going to press L while we're over the top of this one, turn off proportional editing mode, and just going to move these ones right up out of the way. Okay, so just making sure you're not grabbing any other stray vertices. So we can move all these ones right up out of the way over here. Like this. And then we'll have a nice clean UV map. All right, now our UVs are ready to go. Okay, And now only our low poly actually needs UVs here, all right? So we're just going to make sure that one's got some UVs. All right, we don't need all of these materials, so we're just going to add a new material. And this is the one that the Substance Painter will use when it's naming our materials on export, okay? So just to make things nice and easy in the Bannerlord editor, we're going to give this just its own unique name, okay? All right, so that's the name of our low poly shield. Okay, and then we're just going to out of isolation mode, get this strap and our high poly. Okay, join those ones together. Get rid of the materials. And we don't need any UV maps on the high poly there. Okay, so we're just going to get rid of those ones as well. Give this one a material for the high poly. All right. Actually, just going to give that the same name here for our high poly there. All right. And same with our low poly. All right, perfect. Ready to go. So, just want to make sure our high doesn't have any unnecessary materials, doesn't have any UV maps. Okay, just the low poly has the UVs going on here. All right, and then it looks like we're ready. So we can export these individually. Just going to export the high poly. In our Shield Tutorial 2 folder, make sure that you've only got selected objects going, selected there, and mesh. All right, put that on there. Wait a couple of moments for that one to export. Right, and then going to go to our low poly. Good. Export. And low. Cool. All right, now that's all of our Vertex Painting and UV unwrapping done. All right, and we can just take this one straight into Substance Painter and we'll do our texturing and baking. See you there. Okay, so now here we are in Substance Painter. We're just going to start a new project and just going to go the default settings mostly here. All right, we're just going to go to Field Tutorial folder, get our low poly, all right, and just bring that one in. Cool, so you can see we've got our UV layout, everything there is all good. Cool, so then we're just going to go texture settings, bake mesh maps. We're just going to do this at about 2K. We want to make sure, this is really important, in order to get those vertex painting colors come through into Substance, you need to go down to ID, change the color source to vertex color, all right, and then that will bake that one in when we do our baking. Going to leave the frontal distance and rear distance at the same settings. All right, make sure average normals is turned off, apply diffusion, chuck on some anti-aliasing for fun, and match by mesh name. Okay, and we're just going to go bake. Alrighty, once that baking is done, okay, then we can just go ahead and just make sure that there's no weird artifacts going on here. Okay, so it's actually looking all right. So that one looks fine. We're just going to go ahead and go bake mesh maps again, and we're going to choose our high poly. Okay, now this is where this naming convention comes into play. Okay, once we're doing our baking, we need to actually have this high or low suffix at the end of our mesh names. Okay, so that's going to tell Substance Painter which part is being baked. Right, so if we have this high suffix right at the end there, then that's telling it that that's the high poly mesh, and the other one is the low, and that's going to line up that information. All right, so this one's ready to go. We're just going to go bake selected textures and give that a few minutes just to bake on the high poly normals. All right, now our high poly mesh has been baked onto the low poly. Okay, now if we had added a lot more detail to this one using some masking and some inflate brushes and whatnot, then that would be all be coming through here on our high poly normals. Okay, but yeah, we've got everything, all the important information there. So just going to go ahead and start adding some materials. I've got a few here that I've bought from various artists on ArtStation, but you don't need to buy these ones to make it look pretty cool. All right, you can always just go with some of the base steel or various metals kind of materials there and still make it look great. But I just am a huge fan of these ones here, so just going to chuck that on, and of course you can see, yeah, I've already got a lot of cool details and some nice grunge happening there. All right. Then what I usually like to do is just chuck on a little bit of gold on there. All right, that one's looking cool. And then now in order to get these details just sort of covering various different edges and things like that, rather than taking up the entire layer, just going to add a black mask. Okay, I'm just going to go add generator, and then usually I go either curvature or some metal edges, that sort of thing, just to give it some cool contrast and different effects. Might go edges. So with metal edges on, you can see it just adds some cool little highlights just around the edges of different details there, which is always nice, just to make it sort of pop. But I do like that curvature one, so I'm just going to leave that on and just add just a little bit more sort of grunginess to it and just sort of some scratches and whatnot. I like to just add on a bit of sort of tempered steel. And then just chuck on a black mask and some fill. Just a bit of a grunge map. Cool. So that one's looking pretty cool. Last thing I'm going to do is just add on a bit of a filter. Just to give it a bit of a little bit more texture. I think this grainy one is perfect. Just gives it just a little bit of sort of metallic kind of feel. So I'm just going to take down the intensity just a bit. So that one's looking pretty good. Okey-dokey. Now this one looks like it's ready to go. Just going to save this one. Now shield tutorial. Boom. That one's done. And then there's a particular sort of folder structure that I like to do when I'm exporting for Bannerlord. All right, so I'm just going to go textures. This just keeps everything nice and neat and tidy, so you're not getting too confused about where everything is. I like to have a PBR folder and a Bannerlord hex folder. Okay, so we're just going to go PBR first. Right, and we're going to go down to our PBR metallic roughness preset and hit export. All right, that's going to go ahead and export in our nice naming convention here, all right, that we can use to import into Bannerlord. All right, then we're going to go ahead and change location then into BL text. All right, I'm going to go and change up to my Bannerlord preset here. This preset can be found and tuned this way just from the, I believe it's called a 3D asset workflow or something like that. I can put a link to that one in the description, and that just gives you a bit of a guide for setting this up. And then I'll just keep it called as a Bannerlord preset. Keep things simple, and we're just going to hit export. All right, so that just exports just 3 maps that sort of combine everything into a nice, neat kind of package there for us. All right, so that one's done. We can save that one now. And then can just go back into Blender again just to add our collision meshes and our physics meshes. And then we're ready for import into the editor. Okay, so here we've got our collision mesh and our physics mesh, okay, and body of the shield. I'm not sure which one does which exactly, but yeah, so basically these ones are going to get exported and then imported into the editor. Okay, but first of all, we just need to make sure that they're all sharing the same world space, okay, and that they have the right naming convention on their materials as well, okay. So on our normal low poly mesh here, we've got just our normal material name, and on the body mesh, okay, this one has got wood underscore shield, okay. Not 100% sure why that's needed be called that, but sort of just is. And on our body physics mesh here, we've got just wood as the material there, okay? Alright, so now we've got all of these ones. We're just going to go ahead and select all of them, and we're just going to export them as an FBX, okay, into our Shield Tutorial 2 folder, okay, and we're going to call this one Tutorial Meshes. I'm just going to go with selected objects and mesh. Okay, and then we're just going to go export FBX. Okay, and then we're going to take these ones into the Bannerlord editor. Alright, so now that we're in the Bannerlord editor or the modding kit, we're just going to go ahead and go into our assets folder here. We're going to import some new assets from our desktop Shield Tutorial 2 folder. Okay, so going to open up this FBX. Going to make sure that this convert to unit is on meters. I'm assuming that's for meters, and as separate meshes. Okay, everything else can stay as default. Alrighty, so now we've got here our various meshes. Okay, so this is just a normal low poly mesh. Alright, bow mesh and physics mesh there. Okay, so now we're just going to go and import our textures. Alright, from our Bannerlord text folder. Alright, just grab all three of those ones and import them. And just going to go to create here. So I'm just going to this menu just by right clicking anywhere here in this window. Okay, so just go create and create a material. Okay, we're just going to call this one just to keep the naming convention. Alrighty. So now we can just grab that one, keep that material selected, and we're just going to drag and drop our diffuse texture, and that should just automatically put in all the rest of the textures there for us. Okay, we can just go save. And then we're just going to grab our normal low poly mesh here, just drag that one in there. So now that one should have materials on there and looks great. Alright, so now that one's pretty much ready to go. You can see there over on our left hand side, just got the 3800 vertex counts there for our LOD. Got to close this one, and that one should be pretty much ready to add to the game. Alright, and now here we are in Bannerlord, so just going to have a scroll down here. I do have cheat mode turned on, just to make things easier to find modded items. And oh look, here we are. Here's our shield that we made. So yeah, it's looks okay. Pretty happy with that. Just need to test the alignment of it. See how well it lines up with the character's arms, if there's any clipping, anything like that. But basically, any of those kind of issues just require a little bit of tweaking, just moving things around in the world space inside of Blender until you're happy with the results. But yeah, so basically that's all from me today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, leave a like and maybe subscribe. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Peace.